Hello, welcome to Italics, the Italian American magazine. I'm your host, Anthony Tamburri. First, we'll take you to the Columbus Day Parade in Midtown Manhattan, the largest celebration of Italian culture in the United States. Then we'll take you to a recent symposium, Italian American Mental Health, Research and Praxis, held in Midtown Manhattan at the Calandra Institute. Now let's go to Fifth Avenue and enjoy the Columbus Day Parade.
Heart, how it longs for my sweetheart that I left in old Monterey. Come on, let's go. It happened in Monterey a long time ago. I met her in Monterey in old Mexico.
Welcome to the parade.
Oh, it's a great day, and I'm really an honor to be the Grand Marshal for the Colombian Association of the PBA today.
This is actually about the 80th parade.
No.
The 80th?
Yeah, because the first one was the first modern day Columbus Day parade was in '29, and our predecessor, the Columbus Parade Committee, ran that parade.
Ran that before.
Yeah,
all
and
right.
Ultimately became the Columbus Foundation.
Tradition keeps extending.
Yeah.
That's
and one of the finest byproducts of the parade, the gala, the journal, is education.
And education, right.
We have
and
550 kids in our high school.
Receiving scholarships.
High school, grammar school, and university level scholarships. And that's what we're most proud of.
That's what we do. We promote Italian culture and education.
Good.
Good morning, and what a great day. It's a beautiful day. I've just spoke with Ambassador Terzi Sant'Agata. He is so happy with all the cultural things we are doing in America, and we did speak about the advanced placement. It is progressing so well. All of our efforts collaboratively, we really have come united, just like Italy's 150th anniversary.
I haven't missed one in, I don't know, 20 years or so. Love this day.
And you're here with the council?
I'm here with the council and my dad, as always.
Yes, first speaker.
And my daughter. My daughter's on the St. Francis Prep float singing.
And more celebration of the contributions, not only in this country, but to world civilization, and the importance for our own community to keep the language alive, to keep the traditions alive, and that's really what the month and the Columbus Day celebrations are all about.
The Italian immigrants who came to this country not only came to improve their own lives, but they spent a very long time improving the lives of other people going forward. They were instrumental in starting some of our labor unions, whether it be in the garment industry or in the ornamental ironwork or in tile and terrazzo, bakers and confectioners. And along the way, they improved not just their own circumstances, but that of future Italian Americans and other Americans.
Here with the gondolieri from Venice?
Absolutely. We have them to bring the gondola in, and we're very proud for that.
Good, good.
But I'm carrying the American flag.
I
because
see you do.
I was born in Italy, and we owe so much to America.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
All right. We'll see you soon.
Happy Columbus Day.
Senator Schumer, we have to say hello.
Nice to
We're
see
from
you.
CUNY. How are you?
Nice to see you.
You're
We
always
love
here
CUNY.
every year.
Every year.
You're here every year.
Thank
Siamo tutti italiani.
Sì.
Happy Columbus Day. Ambassador
Happy
Day.
Columbus Day to you, Professor. You are a great participant in this unique event. That's the Italian legacy of the Italian language.
I think that really today is beautiful, is the most important manifestation of all this period. And I think that people are quite happy to be here with us, celebrate our heritage.
You know, yeah, I say many times to my colleagues in the parliament, you got to come to the United States, you got to come to New York to find the real Italy. And our tradition, our culture is more preserved here in the States than it is in Italy.
Weather reminds me of Italy. It's that good.
Yes, it is.
A lot of pride, a lot of energy. Attendance looks bigger this year, which is great. And my message to everyone today is let's be proud of our Italian heritage. Let's learn the language. If we don't have the honor of knowing it already, let's spend some time.
As a professor of Italian, I can back you 150%.
Contiamo in italiano. Contiamo in italiano.
We got Baruch also right behind us, too. Baruch?
Yes, sir.
You're the president?
Yes, sir.
Come ti chiami?
Christian Iezzi.
Iezzi.
Iezzi, sì.
Iezzi, yes,
Sì.
okay.
Di Napoli.
So what do we got here? We got Baruch, we got Queen.
That's
All
right now.
Who's the president here? Where's your president? Come ti chiami? Come ti chiami?
Giuseppe.
Giuseppe.
Ciao,
Joe?
come stai?
Giuseppe what?
Spiotta.
Spiotta.
Di
Okay, we're going to
Quaglietta.
do the best we can. Oh, here we got Joe Grosso. Joe Grosso is one of the Calandra counselors. He goes back 30 years, 31 or 2 now.
Advisor for the club.
And this is the advisor for the club. You got all these guys. I remember 5 years ago, there were about 5 people here.
Now we have almost 50.
Professor Fred Gardafe.
Hello.
Who also is invited. You have some of these students
I have
in
some
your
students,
class?
yeah.
Woo! You were in my class. So, yes.
All right. Say something about my class?
It was very interesting. I had a great time in the class.
How are you? Enjoying the day?
Yes, we have a large contingent of people here, several hundred with a float.
Yeah.
We're celebrating our heritage along with
we
everyone
are.
else.
Yeah.
And,
You guys guys have been around a long time. Well,
Since 1905.
Exactly.
New York City Controller was a wonderful experience, and he's very appreciative of the Italian community. Let's face it, New York is the melting pot of the world, and you know, today is our day. There's so many cultures contributed to the history of this country, but this month and today is the Italian American Day.
Stay with me tonight, tonight.
Next, we'll take you to the conference, Italian American Mental Health, Research and Praxis. The conference was organized and inspired by the professional counselors of the Calandra Institute and the work they've been doing over the years, dedicated to, among other things, self-identification in a multi-ethnic society.
And let me just start by saying the premise of my paper today is very simple, which is that the choices you make regarding self-identity determine your personal and professional outcomes in life. It's a big statement, but there seems to be a great amount of evidence for this. And I want to start really with a story about an interaction I had a couple of weeks ago with Richard Aram. If the name should be familiar to you, Richard Aram and his colleague Josipa Rosca just published a book that has gotten a lot of press called Academically Adrift. Essentially, the point of the book is that young people today go to college, but they don't learn anything. I mean, that's basically the premise of the book. They go there, they spend 4 years there, a lot of money, but they come away with very little knowledge and not much more skills than when they went in. He's talking about the differences in learning between the highly selective colleges and what he kindly called the less selective colleges. And he was talking about this measure. And when he put up the chart, and I'm a statistician, so I'm looking at this chart and I'm saying, why do people spend $60,000 a year to go to Wesleyan? Because the differences in learning and skills from the time the student entered till 4 years later were marginal. There was no statistical significance, there was nothing profound about it. Then the other chart he put up that was very fascinating was the amount of debt that students now leave college with when they graduate. And the mean debt today is $26,000. So at the end of his talk, when he was having questions, I said to him, why go to a highly selective institution that costs so much money? He gave me a one-word answer. He said, marriage. And then we had a whole conversation about the point is who you meet, the social networks you develop, the places you end up going, what you end up doing, so that when you go to these institutions, it's not simply the skills and education that you're getting, but the entire social network that you will develop from going there. There's an interesting, increasing recognition among psychologists that self-identification, see, it's not just what other people say you are, but the big issue today is what do you say you are, right? So self-identification with regard to race, ethnicity, and even gender, right? People self-identify now according to gender too, exerts a critical influence on psychological development, both in the pathways seen as available to the individual and to the choices made as the result. Italian Americans face an unusual challenge in their ability to decipher these identity codes because their muddled historical, racial, ethnic categorization follows them wherever they go. Who you think you are will determine who you will become. It's actually a wonderful idea. You can yell back at me all you want. Oh, but my parents didn't go to college, but I did, or there's so many children in my family who went to college. The reality is that among Italian Americans, the rates of college graduation are still lower than for other, what I would call European ethnic immigrants. Right? And so the question becomes, well, why does this happen? Why are the rates lower? And as you heard earlier, my original work really has to do with the development of imagination. And my hypothesis has always been that it's this imaginative force, this imaginative ability that motivates the individual to really attain higher or more complex levels of development at one point, but also permits the individual to break out of what you might call stereotypes. There are certain patterns one sees among Italian Americans, African Americans, Hispanic Americans. So the research that this paper focuses on is really the influence then of culture. In the case of African Americans, pretty clear, legacy of slavery, constant racism. In the case of Hispanic communities, there's always the issue of English as a second language. Right? So it's tough to proceed in education when English is not the first choice. So what about Italian Americans? Is there a legacy of racism? No legacy of slavery? English as a second language? Well, maybe for the first generation, but why should it still be true in 2011 for the fourth generation? And the answer becomes a little more complex, but it's pretty clear that from the start of Italian immigration that there has been an antipathy towards education in the Italian American community. What's more important, going and getting an education or getting married and supporting your family? And when Italian Americans do choose education, when you look at where the numbers are kind of larger for Italian Americans, they're in what I would call the vocational fields. You become a doctor, you become a lawyer. In other words, something concrete, right? As opposed to, you know, a scholar of Italian film, right? I mean, that reality is one that's been looked at for 75 years or more. Some of you who've read a little bit about Italian-American history in New York or the sociology of Italian Americans in New York have heard of Leonard Cavello, who was an educator here in East Harlem. And he saw this immediately. He saw this antipathy among Italian parents who were first, right there, the first ones coming over, who were reluctant to send their children to school. No, you got to work in the store. No, you have to earn a living. And certainly if you're a girl, we don't expect you doing any of that, right? That's not your place at all. So Cavello said, the most overt conflict between the American school and the Italian parental home seems to derive from the economic values of Italian family life. That point is still valid today, right? Especially in a world that's very economically tenuous at the moment, everyone has to be thinking about how you're going to earn a living. And in communities where there's a tradition of economics coming before anything else, obviously what gets thrown aside is the educational piece. So when you look at going back to the idea of educational attainment, the two groups, ethnic European groups, that have the lowest rates of educational attainment are Italian Americans and Irish Americans. Okay? What do these two groups have in common? The Roman Catholic Church, exactly, which is why sometimes when I present my work in certain places, it's not so popular, right? Because being interested in religious development, that's the area I've really focused on. What is it about those social structures of the Catholic Church that have helped contribute to this? Not going to say caused it, right? But certainly there's something in that identity matrix that contributes to this. How do we begin to help young people understand that there are opportunities for them beyond this initial embedded identity, right? What they decide to do, what they choose to be, is going to dramatically affect how their entire life unfolds. We hear this a lot in black communities, where the kids say, well, but if I dress that way and go to college, then I'm selling out. no, you're earning a living and then you can go do what you want to do and not have to worry about the system anymore. Where we stand as Italian Americans as a subject pool within psychology really becomes the issue. Because in psychology, you know, again, it's often framed as black versus white. It's often framed as European immigrants versus non-European immigrants. And my argument is, you know, in order to really understand what goes on, we have to look at Italian Americans. You can't look at Italian Americans just as a part of a larger European group. However, the research really poses several problems because Italian Americans have to really come to terms with the fact that they are marginalized. I mean, if you're marginalized as a subject pool in a major discipline like psychology, then there are other ways that you're being marginalized, stereotyped. And if you think about it, it really requires overcoming three faulty ideas, as far as I'm concerned. The first one is that Italian Americans are a subgroup not worth studying or not worth individual study because Italians are white and they share the same social structures and constructions as all whites. So I don't buy into that. I think that's a false idea. A second one that comes up when people want to study Italian Americans is the worry that the aspects studied may reinforce stereotypes. Huh, we really do eat pasta. You know, we really do. There really are Italians in the mafia, despite what Mario Cuomo thinks, right? I mean, in other words, it does reinforce certain things. And, you know, Fred Gardafe is sitting here who has written about the wise guy effect. Yeah, there are Italian kids today, lots of non-Italian kids who want to be the wise guy. Then one last point, all communities, all ethnic communities have what I would call self-haters. People who, for a variety of reasons, somehow feel that if you admit you're Italian, then you are now admitting you are not part of the majority culture. And some people don't even like to do this. Oh, well, you're all Americans. Yeah, we're all Americans, and I'm sure we're all Americans first in this country. But that second piece has a tremendous influence on who we become. So in psychological development, we need to really begin to understand how does your ethnicity contribute to the positive end of identity development. And in order to do that, we're also going to have to look at the negative side. Right? How does it detract and how does it contribute, and really study these ideas systematically.
One of the strange things I've found out, a lot of people have a joke, there are two types of people who want to be Italian and people who are Italian. The strange thing, we're talking about Italians who won't self-identify.
One can self-identify, one can choose. And if you choose to identify as Italian American, what does that mean for you in your future? Because it means something different than if you said, no, I'm going to identify with the Protestant WASP side of the family, right? A different path comes to you.
One thing I have to say, Donna, I mean, you made some wonderful points, but one kind of stuck out a little bit too, and that was about choice, which I think is so important, so central.
Just to add to that, you know, we always have this idea that everybody goes to college. The great majority of people in the United States still do not graduate from college. It's somewhere between 19 to 25% of the population of 25 and older. The problem is that we've negated certain choices, like wanting to raise my children at home, like being a plumber, like being an electrician, right? The vocations have also now, we tell our children, oh, no, you should go to college. You don't want to be like your dad. You don't want to be a rich plumber. you want to be a poor philosopher.
This is for Dr. Tasso. You were describing, I think, a situation in which the family, there was not enough separation in the family. We also have to guard against the opposite, which I see a lot in American culture, which is, you know, there's too much emphasis on separation to the point of abandonment, where people feel abandoned, you know, and alienated. And I think there's also in American culture too much emphasis on anger, you know, and getting to your anger. And you find it in media, you find it in everything. I mean, it's even dangerous, you know, in this culture, quite frankly.
I'm sitting here wondering,
I know that I was thinking about your great-grandparents. What would your great-grandfather say about the level that we've come to, or that great-grandchildren have come to, in analyzing the Italian-American, pretty much male, too?
What's so funny is my father actually drove me here and said to me, "You're not talking about me, are you?"
Well, to kind of piggyback on that joke, my grandfather, may his soul rest in peace, he always said, "Well, I'll be your first patient." So he was very supportive of the mental health field. But no, I think it's a great question. I think that, again, certain things we talked about, like gender roles, they can be stereotypical.
And my great uncle, who said, why the hell would you go to school so long to tell someone to stop being depressed? That was
What was the impetus behind this conference?
Well, we really wanted to keep things going from last year. We had our mental health and wellness conference last year in October of 2010, and it's really important to keep this concept alive of Italian American mental health and psychology, because who we are is so central to our personality development and how we see ourselves. So today we had the ideal kind of venue here at the Calandra Institute, and we had the combination of research, which helps to illuminate these issues and bring them to many people, and the praxis, the practical application of the knowledge in working with Italian American clients.
One of the things that I really took from a lot of the feedback was the discussion about the potential challenges when there's a similar ethnic background with a patient and a therapist. Sort of when I discussed my own feelings of seeing similarities and not wanting to see the pathology in the person, especially if I'm working with an Italian American patient.
A lot of women, especially who identify as Italian American, are juggling a lot of roles. And what happens is a lot of times they'll kind of dig into their past and look at, how the roles were set forth in their families and then how they replicate them in the here and now. So, really what I would encourage fellow counselors to do is, help these clients make sense of what works for them and what doesn't. There is this level of we want to empower our clients and help them really foster self-care activities and really acknowledge that it's okay to put yourself first and to try to juggle all your roles as best as you can.
Well, that's it for this show. But before we leave, I'd like to remind you that on October 31st, we'll broadcast our last one-hour special dedicated to Italian heritage and culture. We'll be having a program on the 100th anniversary of the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire. That's it for this episode. My name is Anthony Tamburri. Thank you for watching. Arrivederci alla prossima puntata.
Sta fronte a te.